What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in again. If this is your first time to this channel is dedicated to social justice, politics, finances, and everything in between. So if this is your first time, please subscribe, and if you're here again, or if this is your first time, definitely hit that like button. So today's topic is something that's actually pretty close to home for probably a lot of you, since I'm from Colorado, and many of the people that I know and are supporting this channel so far are from Colorado as well. What I want to talk about today is the story of Elijah McClain. Similar to the Breonna Taylor video, some of you may be very familiar with Elijah McClain's case. Some of you may have never heard of it, or some of you may be kind of in that middle ground where you know some things but not the whole story. Today I'm going to be sharing his story and hopefully helping other people to know what happened to him and hopefully be able to create some change. So with that being said, let's just get right into it. So Elijah McClain was walking home from a convenience store last August, so August 2019, when somebody called the police on him for suspicious behavior. And so the suspicious behavior that was happening is that Elijah was wearing a mask because he's anemic, and so he would get very cold. So he was wearing something to cover his face to keep him warm. And he was listening to music on his way home, and somebody called the police on him for being suspicious. And the basis was he was wearing the mask and that he was moving erratically or something along those lines because he was listening to music and dancing as he went home. And so somebody calls the police on him. So Elijah is walking home from the convenience store. And so on the way, police arrive on the scene after receiving the call of a suspicious person. So there is body cam footage of this incident. It doesn't capture the whole event, but you can clearly see the events leading up to this. And I think that's probably the most important part of this. So you can see in the body cam footage that Elijah is walking, and police are on the scene. They are telling him to stop. He's stopping. He's taking off his headphones. And while he's stopped, immediately the police officer that you can see in the video grabs him and tells him that he needs to stop, he needs to listen. And so keep in mind that Elijah's walking with headphones on, and he's not running from the police, he's simply walking down the sidewalk. So immediately police are the aggressors in this situation. So they grab onto Elijah, they tell him to stop tensing up, but what are you going to do when somebody's grabbing you and being aggressive to you when you've done nothing wrong? So he's tensing up, the officers keep telling him to calm down, and he keeps asking them to stop touching him, to give him some space, and saying he's trying to listen. He was trying to explain the situation, but they did not want to hear an explanation. They simply wanted him to be okay with their aggression rather than trying to solve the situation. It was about power for them, not about anything else. And so you can see in the video that Elijah is then pressed up against the wall. Police keep saying that he's resisting, and then at some point they pull him down to the ground after one of the officers says, "Oh, he reached for your gun." So now Elijah's on the ground, and multiple times throughout the video you can hear Elijah say that he can't breathe. He was placed into a carotid choke by one of the officers. They were choking him, and he's saying he can't breathe. At one point he even throws up during this altercation and apologizes for throwing up, says he didn't mean to do that. He says multiple times, I'm not armed, I'm not trying to hurt anybody, I'm just trying to go home. My house is right there. You can hear him say that. And so while they're choking him on the ground, they call for an ambulance, and paramedics come. They give Elijah 500 milligrams of ketamine, and then Elijah goes into cardiac arrest. He has multiple heart attacks on his way to the hospital, and then 3 days later he was pronounced brain dead and taking off life support. And so this situation is honestly just so tragic and so messed up that this even happened. There's multiple factors here that I think are critical to understanding this. And so the first one is that in Colorado, police officers have to have reasonable suspicion that you have committed a crime, that you are committing a crime, or that you're about to commit a crime in order to detain you. And then in addition to that, they have to have probable cause in order to arrest you. And so Elijah, at the moment of contact with police officers, has not been accused of any crime. The only crime that he's been accused of is simply being suspicious, wearing a mask. And so the officers then are the aggressors in this situation because Elijah is not doing anything wrong. And they actually are violating his rights from the moment that they actually demand that he stops and talks to them and that they physically detain him. Because you have to have reasonable suspicion in order to detain him. So first you're illegally detaining him. Next, the officers are arresting him for no crime at all except for resisting arrest, which is completely ridiculous because how can you resist arrest when there's no crime that you're being arrested for in the beginning? So from there, the officers then take him to the ground. They are choking him, which is a completely unnecessary action. There's 3 officers on the scene already. There's no reason that they need to be choking this smaller man who's like 120 pounds. He's not a threat to anybody. He says multiple times he's unarmed, and throughout the process of them choking him, he's communicating saying, I'm not a threat, I can't breathe. He's simply just asking to live and to be left alone. That's literally all he's asking for. So on top of them violating his rights up front, on top of them using unnecessary force, then they go ahead and call the paramedics and ask them to administer ketamine, which is ridiculous. Why are you going to sedate a man who simply is resisting arrest? And so he then is killed as a result of all those things. Now, one of the things to note about this is that the official autopsy in the investigation came back inconclusive as to the cause of death for Elijah. They said that it could have been the ketamine, it could have been some other factors, it could have been the stress of the situation, and they're citing that Elijah had an underlying heart condition. But the fact of the matter is that we all know that had police not violated his rights, choked him, and drugged him, that he would be alive today. And so, like I said at the beginning, this incident happened last August. And you would think that now it's August 2020, this happened in August 2019. You would think that this is enough time for the police chief and city council and all these other people, the mayor, all these other people to decide, okay, these officers who were involved in this should no longer be officers. But surprise, surprise, these people are still on the force with the exception of one person. So one of the officers, Officer Rosenblatt, was fired as a result of two other officers posing in a picture at Elijah McClain's vigil mocking his death. One of the officers was pretending to choke the other officer and smiling, laughing about it. And Officer Rosenblatt responded and laughed about it. And so he was fired for laughing at this picture of police officers mocking a person that the other police officers killed. And so all 3 of the people involved in that were fired as well. But the issue here is that you're firing an officer for laughing at a photo of somebody that he killed, but you're not firing the officers who killed the person in the first place, which is completely absurd. As I've said, these officers violated his rights. They choked him and drugged him, and it resulted in his death, and they're still police officers. 2 out of 3 are still police officers, and the one who was fired wasn't fired for killing Elijah McClain. He was fired for laughing at a photo, which is reasonable to fire him. He should be fired. He shouldn't be a police officer. The other 2 people involved should not be police officers. But if they shouldn't be police officers for making inappropriate jokes about somebody who's killed, then why the hell are the police officers who actually are killing people still on the force? So the Adams County District Attorney, Dave Young, decided not to press charges on these officers, stating that there wasn't enough evidence that he could confidently bring this to trial and convict them beyond a reasonable doubt. And so what he's saying is he can't prosecute these people for committing murder or homicide because there's not enough facts. The autopsy is saying that they may or may not have killed him. So he's using that as saying, oh, sorry, there's nothing I can do, when in fact there's plenty that he could do. These people violated his rights. They assaulted him. If you're not sure that they killed him, you at least know that they assaulted him. There's body cam footage of that. It's just another ploy to try to say, oh, this is out of my hands, and just blatantly side with police officers, as we see time and time again. So because of Dave Young's incompetence and unwillingness to prosecute these police officers, Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado, decided to appoint a special prosecutor, Phil Weiser, the Colorado State Attorney General, to investigate this case. So this happened about a month ago. At the beginning of July, Jared Polis announced this. We don't know necessarily how long that's going to take. From what I've read, that these special investigations can take a very long time to carry out. So we don't know when exactly we'll get those results, but it is important to note that this is an unprecedented action from a governor in Colorado. Usually, once a district attorney has ruled on these matters, the state does not step in. So I think that's an important thing to realize, that, and I'll give Jared Polis credit for that, is that he's taking this seriously and saying, no, we need to do better than that. Now, we can't just be okay and complacent with the fact that they're investigating, because at the end of the day, this is the government investigating the government. It's the city of Aurora being investigated by the state of Colorado. So incentives and politics definitely play a factor here. And we can't overlook that, and we can't just be complacent and no longer hold these officials accountable. That being said, we need to help fight and bring justice for Elijah McClain and for his family. So I've put a link to a petition in the description that demands justice for Elijah McClain. Please fill out that petition. On top of that, call Attorney General Phil Weiser's office, demand that these officers be held to account. Call the mayor of Aurora, Mike Coffman, demand that these officers who were involved in this be fired. The Aurora Police Department actually just appointed a new police chief. She was appointed actually just this past Monday. Her name is Vanessa Wilson. So call her, demand that she fires the other officers involved and revokes their pensions, because these people are not suited to be police officers. They're not suited to receive taxpayer dollars, and they're definitely not suited to retire off of taxpayer dollars. And so we need to hold them accountable. This behavior by police officers who are trained is completely unacceptable. As I mentioned earlier, Elijah McClain's rights were clearly violated in this. The family attorney for Elijah McClain, Mary Newman, has said that she is conducting an investigation and plans to file civil suit against the Aurora Police Department and any other parties for the death of Elijah McClain, which I think is really important, because clearly his rights were violated. Clearly this is not something that should ever happen again. So again, thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something today. Please share, please sign the petition, make some calls, help bring justice for Elijah McClain and his family. Thanks for watching.